particular evening because we have a man who has been fighting for a very, very good time, a long time. In fact, Thomas Fidler, he is the founder and president of the Fathers' Rights Movement. It's a tremendous honor to have him back on our program. Thomas, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Having me.
Listen, there are lots of young men who tuned in tonight, and they haven't the age and wisdom that we have of having gone through the fight. They are fighting right now to make paycheck to paycheck living, and they want to take care of their kids. What would you advise them at this particular juncture?
So, if you don't mind, before we get started,
Yes.
Earl, and I'll put that onto our website as well so that we can have more people, and then I'll dive into that question for you.
Go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you have the website address that from the Father's Rights Movement page can
Yes.
come on in and listen?
Yes, and we have given the website address. The website address is fathersrightsmovement.us, fathersrightsmovement.us, and people can go to that particular website to get more information about what it takes to get the rights appreciated by not only the court but by society in general.
So you said you can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the first thing, they're going into a battle, depends on how the mother is. If they're amicable, then try to work things out. There's no to I would say court at all costs if you can. That make bad situation really bad, and if you can avoid that, that'd be great. If you can come up with agreement between the two of you. I think the court system is an adversarial system, and it really two people against one another, and it just exacerbates the problem. In my own personal situation, I fully believe that we could have been friends and co-parented. We each had a little time to heal. You know, you're going into a divorce. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of emotions. And had there been a little bit of time for that to kind of calm down a little bit, I think things would have turned out much different than they did, due to the fact that we just put it into an adversarial system. I believe her suggested some things that are not quite ethical, and nonetheless, maybe she there was a her client position. So this system with the court, it makes things a lot worse, and they don't favor men at all. So if she's at all amicable and you guys can work something out between the two of you, do so. If not, then you want to, if you can afford one. It's going to be one of the most important things you do.
Now, you say that the courts favor women over men, but it's supposed to be a just system. It's supposed to work for the benefit of the child. Please educate me. Why doesn't that happen?
Well, there's a lot of views on that. Mine's maybe not the most popular, actually. There's a lot of theories that it's Title is. I think some of these other theories definitely play a factor, but Title 40 is a big one where the states are incentivized to get child support, and it's a federal program that puts money into this. And so a lot of people think that the Title 40 is the reason for favoring one parent over. Personally, I think it's old habits die hard. It's old values that don't necessarily go away quickly. I can give you a quick little story with even as the Father's Rights Movement fighting for equality, fighting for years. I ended up getting my children back 50-50. I've had them back for about 4 years now, and we share custody on them. And my daughter, she's pretty boisterous, and comes to me one night and she's like, "Dad, you're different than your candidate." And she explained to me how she felt that way. I stuck and she was right. And I think it's the society we're in, and from just a real small age, from youth, you grow up, you have your daughter, you have your son, you treat them differently.
Yeah.
Son, they need to get up, they need to cry. Girl, you pick up, you cuddle. and I, was protecting her. Basically, I was late, or I'd be a little bit more lenient when he came home and stuff like that. And she pointed at me, and after I stepped back and looked at it, she's right. And this is I've been fighting for equality for years, and I felt victim to that of treating them differently. So I think it's ingrained into our culture is the biggest portion of it.
Now, there's some who would sit back and say, um, I'm being lied on. I've always taken care of my kids. I worked two
Absolutely.
jobs. I've done everything I could. I took them to Pee Wee. I took them to abuse the children, that I've mistreated the children. How does a man fight that accusation in a courtroom where it's we've been told now that you're just supposed to believe women because they speak?
Yeah, and if they're a victim, you're not supposed to question the victim. You're supposed to believe them 100%. And that goes against the whole premise of guilty, or innocent until proven guilty. And that's basically the foundation of our justice system, is that you are innocent until you're proven guilty. You can't just take someone's word at it. You need to question them. You need to do an interrogation. You need to see if they're possibly lying. And they don't do that anymore. It's definitely polarizing the country. And I fought for 4 years and I got him back. To be honest, it was not the courts that got him back for me. It was that boisterous young lady. She turned a teenager at 14, and she started asking, the hard questions, and she couldn't. My ex-wife couldn't tell her name answers as she told to the courts,
Mm-hmm.
because she couldn't tell my daughter that you can't go see him because you're scared of him. She knew better, and so she kind of got boxed into a corner there. And I think she realized that she was going to face their lifetime resentment, or we were going to need to share custody on him. And so that's how I got mine. It wasn't anything the courts did right. And I look at, and that's why I'm doing this, is I realize how lucky and fortunate I am, in that occurred, because I was a stay-at-home dad for several years. I taught
Yeah.
them how to ride bikes, how to climb trees, everything. And they were 11 years old when we separated, so they knew me very well. We had a lot. We had 10 years of bonding, and it's hard to just kind of turn that against somebody. And so I was fortunate. But had we separated when they were 7 or 6, we wouldn't have got that bond. And when they turned teenagers, they probably wouldn't have been as forceful as they were to want to spend more time. And so I look at that and I'm like, had they been younger, I would have been isolated. I would have been cut out of their lives. Every other weekend father would have been all I ever would have been.
Exactly.
And yeah,
I want to.
it's horrible.
I know, and I've shared that experience, and I think that this is a conversation that needs to be held in America more often, because divorces lead to poverty, poverty leads to crime, crime leads to broken culture, and the absence of the father. But somehow the court system doesn't believe that. Um, there are some men who are listening tonight saying that when I go into the courtroom, I'm going to let that judge know exactly what's on my mind and what that person's done to me, and I'm going to stand up for myself, and I'm going to get my kids back. Is that the right approach?
It's not, and it's hard to tell people that's not the right approach. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of a sense of what you mentioned earlier. We grow up, the courts are fair and just, and I very much, I was looking forward to my day in court. It was going to, we were sharing 50-50 custody before, and the allegations were ridiculous. We'd lived together for 13 years. It wasn't like, people just walked into our house all the time. Our kids were 11. Certainly,
Mm-hmm.
somebody could talk to the kids, see if any of this was true. And so I really did not think that it would stand. I just was naive. I went into that court believing that it was there to dispense justice, and I got a rude awakening.
Mm-hmm.
They took my day.
Now, and when they took your kids, because a lot of people think that we're men, we don't have any feelings, the kids are just kids. What were your thoughts the minute you heard the judge say, we're giving custody to the mother? based on the accusations that have made against you.
Yeah, it's like hitting you with the freight train for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way you can describe it. Um, Again, that one of the biggest letdowns there is when you have expectations. You go into that
Yeah.
courtroom and you're expecting to be treated fairly, and you're expecting to have justice dispensed, and so you have high expectations. And that morning, I had been accused of domestic violence, so I actually had a criminal court case that morning as well in the other court, which is kind of coincidental. And the judge, we met at 8 for the civil case that started, and at 10 she broke. She said, you need to go in next door and you need to go do the civil case or the criminal case there, and the result of that's going to really drive what's going to happen here with custody. So I went next door, and that judge, because it was a criminal case, it was a mandatory arrest, and
Mm-hmm.
I texted her and said, wake up, the kids need both of us, and cops came and arrested me, lost my job, and the judge in that case was very sympathetic. He was just, he did not, he really was happy with the fact that I was sitting in front of him, and he was like, I guess in some of these cases, this kind of stuff is going to happen. The legislation is passed this mandatory arrest law, and but basically they let that go, and his words really gave more hope to me that it was all going to be figured out and this was all going to be just. And so I went back, and but what I got told there was that it was civil court and the same rules didn't apply, that the same level of evidence wasn't required. I was found guilty for texting, which broke the restraining order
Mm-hmm.
and was considered an act of domestic violence. And then when I got out of jail, I followed the Rights Movement page, and back then you could push a button that just basically send out an invitation to all your friends.
Yep.
You didn't have to click them individually; just sent to all of them. And so I hit that, and she was still a friend, so she got a message from Facebook. The judge decided that would be a third-party contact, another violation of the restraining order, another act of domestic violence, and with two acts of domestic violence, I was considered a repeat pattern abuser, and no custody of the children, none. And only under visitation could I see them, and under
Now,
supervised visitation.
there are men who are sitting out here tonight saying, Thomas Kent, there's no doggone way any of those accusations that have been made against me are true. What
Yeah.
rights do I have in the courtroom? How do I defend myself? I can't do it on the college campus because I could get thrown off for just merely being accused of having touched a girl, not even
Yep.
going as far as rape or anything of that nature. Just touching is enough. How do I convey my defense? What should I get a lawyer? Should I spend a whole lot of money? What should I do? Should I go to family court? Because the family court's going to
Yep.
work for me, right?
So the family court is not going to work for you. They're very much like the colleges. The accusation is the evidence,
Mm-hmm.
and basically the Salem witch trials had more due process than you'll find in family court. The best advice I can give is, if you don't have much money, it's because the attorney's going to make a big difference. The attorney will make a big difference, but you got to have the right attorney too.
Mm-hmm.
And but they're going to cost a lot of money, and they'll drain a lot of cash from you. So if you don't have, at $300 an hour, $400 an hour, some $500-600 an hour, if you're working, you're a regular guy making $20, $30 an hour, how you and they'll spend hours and hours, so it becomes very quickly, it'll suck all your savings out of you. So you got to go say stuff. Most attorneys will kind of work with you where you work leg work and stuff, and they'll just show up for the call it unbundled, and they'll just show up for the hearings and the trial and stuff like that. You do most of the other work, file the motions and so forth. I definitely say get familiar with law if you can, and the most important thing of it all is just to keep those emotions. Don't show any emotion, because if you do, now we can point our finger and say, "See, we told you," and he's out of control. We got to take him, and so you just give them their excuse.
Now, Thomas Fidler with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and the organization is the Father's Rights Movement. It is not a one city organization, Fathers' Rights Movement, is around the world. Am I correct?
You are. We're in I think 24 countries and in every state. And Canada has they're breaking into provinces.
Now, you hear the stories.
Oh yeah.
Some people married, some people never been married, and they've gotten
Right.
into
Yep.
relationships and they've had babies out of wedlock, and all they want to do is have a good relationship with your child. They no longer want to be apart with the mother, and they
Right.
want to go on and basically deal with their life, their livelihood. Yet there always seems to be this story of baby mama drama. If you don't want me, then you can't see the kids. Does a woman have the right to do that to a man?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, unfortunately, they may not have the right. They do have the power.
Mm.
Oftentimes they have the power to do it. And there's I think Abraham Lincoln was the one that says, if you want to really know somebody, give them power.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of people don't really they don't know who they were married to until divorce happens.
Hmm. No.
And then
In
you
terms
find
of
out.
the fathers' rights movement, for the men who are out here listening tonight, and it's not just men, there are women also, and they want to be a part of this particular organization. They want to look out for their son or their daughter who's gone through this particular experience. A daughter could be married to a person who has several children outside of the marriage, and they're going through that. What can they expect from the fathers' rights movement, and what type of supports are available to them?
So we don't have anything as far as financial and so forth. There's just
Exactly.
an endless sea of victims there. We even if we had financial availability, we would go towards legislation because we want to stop the problem and stem the tide. We try to help ever have enough money to help all of them. And so what we do is emotional support and guidance as far as volunteer helping guys that there are on the 7. Anybody that's near the edge, they call us, and that's really it's been fantastic because a lot of us, before it started, we didn't have there's the National Suicide Line, but we're not going to call them.
No.
We wouldn't call them. I wouldn't call them. And so, but they won't call us, and so that's been very successful. And we're proud of having that. We have the guys. They get on the page, and like you said, women are just as involved. Actually, women are being isolated and kept out of the men's or out of the library for the men too. Nowadays, it's starting to happen more and more. Not that it's anywhere near even equal yet, but they are happening in more and more numbers. And we actually have a couple women that have been alienated from their children that volunteer with us.
Exactly.
So basically, just reach out. There's nothing more powerful going through that time, and you're considering ending it. You're in the darkest time of your life, and you make contact with somebody who really truly understands. There were people I bonded with across the country, called in text that I'd never met, and I bonded with them in ways that I will never bond with people in life. I got the support of my family, and I got the support of my at home that knew me my whole life, but they could not offer me the support someone that knew it could.
You say that the government incentivizes broken relationships, in a sense. And there are young men that the government would spend money to break up a family. Can you speak to the powers of child support and as well the family court?
I'll do my best on that. The theory on that, you'll find quite a few in our movement, even quite a few in the Fathers' Rights movement in our organization. I don't make everybody. We don't always prescribe to the same opinions. We all agree in 50-50 presumptions, but when it comes to Title 4D, comes to a lot of different items within that affect us. There's a lot of different opinions, and we don't let that deter us. So with Title 4D, a lot of people believe that the states are actually making a profit off of that. That they actually are making more money than they're spending. I don't believe that to be true myself. I've looked through that quite a bit, but and I haven't seen anything that indicates that some stuff that they got in there are extremely complicated and in depth, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's hiding from me. But I've looked. What they do is they reimburse for like 60-70%. Um, no cost to the state as they can.
Yes.
State, like, the more the state does that, then they do kind of make a little, because if they don't pursue it aggressively, then they only get like 50% back. Whereas if they do well in this program, then they get like 70% back. So
Wow.
there is an incentive wise to them that way to pursue very hard, and that's why they're taking licenses and they're putting people in jail and
Yeah.
for what? I mean, it's a debtor's prison, and it's not even. It's amazing, but the way they've circumvented so many streets, from the allegations becoming evidence, into the family court, and maybe they're not putting you in jail. They're taking your kids, which I think is, I'd rather go to jail than lose my kids. So they take things that are extremely valuable, and that you should have rights to. At least due process. You should have rights to due process in the same manner you do when you're accused. I really would like to see that, where if you're accused of domestic violence, that's fine as long as it can be proved in like a court of
Yeah.
criminal court. Then use that against the father, but it should have to go through that rigorous step and make sure that it's beyond a doubt.
Due process, not community justice. I want to ask you
Right.
in finality here, for the young men who are listening tonight, and they, for the first time, were driving down the road, and the police officer pulled them over because they happened to be going a little faster than the speed limit, and the next thing they know, their license is being taken from them. They can't get to work anymore, and because they can't get to work, they lose their job. And when they lose their job, they have no proof of income, so they can't keep the kids. What is the best way for individuals to deal with child support orders?
You've got to pay. They've got their restrictions, and every state's different. Some of them are. I'm personally not against child support, but I'm against unreasonable child support,
Thank
and
you.
there is unreasonable child support out there.
Mm-hmm.
It destroys. I mean, it absolutely destroys them. It makes them so they can't live. They're living paycheck to paycheck, which, I mean, we're doing anyways. But when you take away 60% of a guy's income, he's doesn't, because now he's living with 4 roommates or 5 roommates or something, and it's the only way he can make ends meet. And then he gets behind, and then they take his license or something like that. Next thing you know, they're jailed, and they get a cycle where they can't get back out of. They just can't get back out of the cycle that they've created there. There was this one guy in Pennsylvania I talked to. 20 years of his life was spent on the same. 6 months in, 6 months out, and that went for 20 years. 10 years of that 20 he spent.
It's funny. You have liberals who are talking about they want to end homeless systems that they've created that are so biased and prejudiced, actually lead to some of that homelessness. In fact,
Absolutely.
you do a wonderful job, Thomas Fidler, with us. You have been a rock to a lot of men who, and this is all true, and we're not fabricating any of this, who were one bullet away from dealing with their issue, could not conceive the fact that one moment they were pillars of the community, and then the next moment they were wife abusers, child abusers, and literally living paycheck to paycheck, home to home, couch to couch, trying to keep their kids. If there's one thing you would say to someone to join your organization, what would be that one thing?
So, in the organization, that I would say wait until your case is over, or at least until you've come to a place where you're comfortable. I mean, where your emotions have died down, because your emotions will go for years up and down,
Yeah.
and so forth. And so what happens is, they're welcome to come to the page. We encourage them to come to the page, to interact with our editors and interact with one another, and to connect community. but what we are trying to do is maybe stop them from coming right out of court straight into the volunteer slot. Um, it's kind of they're broken. And,
Yeah.
there's a huge turnover rate, and it's hard. Like, I kind of think of it as like a fast food restaurant where we're serving these people and we're trying to help them, but then we keep getting them on our side of the counter, and they're kind of helping themselves to the resources and stuff, and it's a problem. So we understand what you're going through, and if you do want to help, we can. There's definitely things that we can help do, especially companies and stuff like that. It's important to get out there, and it's important to see us out there talking to legislation, putting signs up in front of courts, houses. There's a lot of different opinions on that, but I've always been about doing the rally. It's they'll say you look at the person, if it's one person, that's fine. I've seen in Illinois there was a gentleman there that got he got in the newspapers and everything. He was the only guy there. One person can make a difference sometimes. They can put it out if the news picks it up, especially around Father's Day when they're looking for stories to do with fathers. And so one person can get that word out and get the awareness spread to 20, 30, 50, 100,000.
Yeah, and I just want to say this. Thomas Fidler and Ken McClinton are examples of men who were able to go against the system and get their kids back. You can do it. There are people who are fighting for you. And I would encourage you, deal with your emotions first and then fight the good fight. Thomas, thank you so much. We're going to have you back in a few weeks. This is a very important issue, especially on license suspension and all the other things. Thank you so much for all the work that you do. Sure.
Can I say one more thing before? So you'd ask, what can they do? And I really add there on any of those questions, because it's a hard, it's against you the whole way, and there's nothing to get your kids back, or to make that you're going to have a fair trial or anything like that. The only thing is not to give up. That's and even then there are men that it's all right. They need to give up, because if they don't, they're going to destroy themselves. And if you can't take care of yourself, you're no good to anybody else.
Yeah.
So for some men, the right decision is to walk away. And I hate to say that, and I know I'll get to them on that, but for some men, it was. I'll be lying if I didn't say I didn't think about it during those darkest times. It was a thought that crossed my mind. It's until you experience it, you can't even imagine what it's like. And it's for some people, they need to walk away. For others, I say fight as long as you can. And somebody that remembered every year, and somebody that on the weekends would just email and say how much they missed them. It'll stop a lot of the lies that they were told.
Yeah, that's the biggest killer, the lies.
Mm-hmm.
The hearts of so many children have been broken as a result thereof. Thomas, thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you for having me, Ken.
It was great having you, sir. Thomas Fidler, the Father's Rights Movement. It will not be the last time we have him on, but I would encourage you. This is just a start, a very earnest start. The fight is yours, and the battle is God's. Fight God's battle the right way, and you will succeed in everything. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, with more of the best at Urban Conservative Talk, and we will be talking about some of the things that we've been missing talking about over the past few weeks. The impeachment conversation is a conversation that you have with people who care and love you. Again,